So we've now reached the end of our chapter with Section 3, A New Plan of Government. And so what I want you to think on was basically your influences. If you were here in class, we talked about who influences you, the idea of social media and things like that. And so let's take a look here at our essential questions. So the first one at the beginning of the section, they talk about where do the ideas of the Constitution come from. They then go into a discussion of government organization, and most of you are pretty good with this. You understand the three branches, you might even know the names. What they individually do, that might get a little foggy. And then finally in this section, it ends with a discussion of the adoption of the Constitution. So understand that it's not just as simple as we made the Constitution, then it became the law of the land. They had to actually send it out to the individual states and have it adopted. So this first part, we're going to focus on this idea of where does the Constitution's ideas come from. So I'm going to show you this picture of a tree because it's a very good kind of idea of symbolism here with the roots of where it goes to. And so what I thought is I would throw up here some ideas of some musical artists and where their influences come from. So since you guys are going to be watching this on screen, this is easy for you to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put their pictures up here again. And I want you to look down and figure out which ones go with which pop stars, okay? And what I've also done, just for fun, is to add in some music, okay? So hopefully this goes off without a hitch. So here we go. The first one is going to be Marvin Gaye right down here, and I'm going to just show and play a little sample of Marvin Gaye, a singer-songwriter from the late 1960s, early 1970s. So put them back up there so you can take a look, and here we go.
Mother, mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, 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 there's far too many of you dying. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today.
All right, so we're going to move on. Hopefully this keeps going well. So over here, of course, we have Queen down here. So here's Queen. Probably, maybe some of you are familiar with it because there's a movie a few years ago about Freddie Mercury. Here we go.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. I'm just a cool boy, I need no sympathy, 'cause I'm easy come, easy go, little high, little low. Anywhere the wind blows doesn't really matter to me.
All right, so we'll keep going here. So that was Queen. So we go over here. There's David Bowie and the Beatles. So let's listen to the Beatles here.
The next song we'd like to sing. It's called All Day's Night. It's been a hard day's night, and I've been working like a dog. It's been a hard day's night, I've been sleeping like a log. When I get home to you, I find the things that you do make me feel alright. I work all day to get you money to buy a thing, and it's worth it just to hear you say you're gonna give me everything.
All right, and last but not least, David Bowie. So maybe you recognize him. He was a pop star of the 1980s. Sadly, he has passed away from a battle with cancer a few years ago. So here's David Bowie. Okay, so I've given some of the answers away already. So Mr. Ed Sheeran, he says he's influenced by the Beatles and, yeah, Eminem. He stuttered when he was a young child, and he would listen to Eminem's songs and just go over the lyrics over and over and over again. So that was a way that he got over his stutter, and so it was a huge impact. Now, the next one, so we'll take this one away and this one away. We're going to talk about Jay-Z, and Jay-Z says his biggest influence is Marvin Gaye. So the first one that I played. So that means that the last one, Lady Gaga here, would actually claim that, first of all, Michael Jackson, huge influence. Okay? And then the other one would be, yes, David Bowie. And last would be actually Queen. So if you know anything about Lady Gaga, obviously that's not her real name. She was born Stephanie something. But the song that she really liked from them was called Radio Gaga. Look it up on the YouTube. And that's where she gets her name from, Lady Gaga. So let's move on. All right, so if you have your notes out there with you, let's do this first. So let's talk about the roots of the Constitution. We're going to look way back. And way back, we would say that it goes all the way back to ancient Greece and ancient Rome. Remember, the Greeks invented democracy. So that's our ancient kind of influence. And the Romans had a republic. Sadly, though, that quickly devolved into a dictatorship once under the rule of Julius Caesar. But you can understand that that's where we get some of our traditions. Heck, some of our buildings even look this way. So, the other thing that you have there on your sheet is a discussion of British influence. Now, our political traditions come from Great Britain. Remember, we are obviously British colony, so when we showed up and we wanted to figure out how to govern ourselves, we used the British model. So, the British model, their lawmaking branch, see, we have Congress, they would have Parliament. Now, our Congress, as you should know, has two houses, the House and the Senate. Theirs has two houses as well, but their names of their bodies are different. It's called the House of Lords, which is an inherited body, meaning if your dad was the Lord and you're the oldest son, you're going to be the next Lord. And then the House of Commons, which basically anyone can get elected to. They also have other important historical documents that you got to understand a little bit. The first one is called the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta literally means, in Latin, big paper. Big paper. Now, why is it important? Well, Magna Carta goes way back into the Middle Ages, 1215, and it limited the power of the king. The very first time, the nobleman who served him said, you need to have your power restrained. And so that starts the process in British history that there are some restrictions on the power of government over the people. The next one is called the Bill of Rights, or the English Bill of Rights. So you're talking about such basic rights that we have today, like trial by jury. Okay? Those things are established with the British, and the English Bill of Rights goes back into the 1600s. On the other side of your notes, you should have a section that says important writers. Now, there were writers that influenced these men. That's why we did the little thing at the beginning. They didn't have social media. They didn't really have too much access to news as much as we do, but they did and had been influenced by writers before them. So the first writer was a guy by the name of Montesquieu. That's his last name. He's Charles Montesquieu, or Baron de Montesquieu. So with that name, you might figure it out. He's French, okay? So Montesquieu's writing a book. We'll come back to him in a second. The other person is an Englishman called John Locke. I just put their last names. So on your notes, what I want you to put in there is the names of their two books. The first one's called The Spirit of Laws, and the other one is Two Treatises of Civil Government. So I want you to write those down now. I'll pause and then I'll move on to the next screen. So we're going to talk about what each book said and how it actually represents itself in our government today. So as we go to the next one, I want to make sure that we understand that weird word called treatises. And a treatise is an argument. It's a discussion, a methodical, fact-based principles, and basically what your conclusions are. It's a book or an article or a writing examining a subject. And the one that John Locke was examining was on government. Now understand, both of these men are living in a monarchy. They have kings. So the idea is they are proposing something different than what they're actually living. Two books, here we go. Montesquieu and Locke. Montesquieu, in his book, Spirit of the Laws, he says that government power should be two things. And those two things are They should be separated and they should be balanced. So pause it here, write those things down, that government should be separated and government should be balanced. Now hopefully your mind is going to how our government is both separated and balanced. You probably have a good idea of one, but maybe not the other. John Locke was an English philosopher, and he basically thought, hey, all people have natural rights. Now, to us today, that is not groundbreaking thought, because you live in a society, in a world where this has become the norm. But you have to understand them writing in the 1600s when they were, the only person and persons that got rights, they got those from a monarch. It was given by a human. And so if a human can give you rights, they can take it away. And so what Locke was saying was somewhat controversial and radical, is that he believed people had rights when they were born. And if you have rights when they're born, they're yours for your entire life. No one can take them away. Thomas Jefferson borrowed Locke's idea that government is there to protect your rights. That's the only essence of government, protect your rights. He also talked about power, and he feels that power needs to be limited. If you give people power, they will abuse it. And as we talked in class, if you've ever been in daycare or somebody was picked as line leader, you know small things of power goes to some people's head and they get a little crazy about it. So you have to find ways to limit their power. So just remember the names of those two books and the thoughts that go with them. Okay? So we'll take that look again. Of course, you got Montesquieu down here. That's the way he looked. Down in the roots of the Constitution. And then he comes up with that idea that we have today. We have our three branches. That is government that is separated. Okay, so that's his ideas come to life. John Locke, on the other hand, his are a little harder to find. We see them in the Declaration of Independence and things like that, but that's John Locke's ideas with us. So we're going to finish up here, and we're going to talk about how power is being separated. So as we put these up here, if you can look down at your sheet and find those various icons, I want you to take some notes under each one. You'll see the word branch, and so looking at these, we probably can figure that out. So what we understand that each branch, each part of the government has its own job to do. So let's do the first one over here. So what we're looking at here is the United States Capitol building. Okay, that's capital C-A-P-I-T-O-L, not A-L, Capitol. That's the actual building itself. And this is where Congress goes to work. So that would be the legislative branch. Okay, so we're writing that down if we already didn't have it. And then we have to understand its basic rule and reason it's there, and that is it makes the laws. So each of these is going to end in the laws, but this one either makes and passes laws. If we move down here to the second one that's mentioned in the Constitution in an article, basically that's the way it's created in the Constitution. We have the different parts called articles. We have the next one, which most people can recognize. This would be the White House. So this would be the executive branch. Now, what does the executive branch do? What does the president do? Well, their job is mostly to enforce law, not to make it. They can suggest it, but making of laws is the Congress's responsibility. If you look at this word right here, you could also see that executive means to execute, to carry out the law. That's what it means. And finally, we have the judicial branch, and you can sort of see it right here in the word. The judicial branch judges the laws. They basically judge the laws that were made by this person, signed by these people, and enforced by them. And then finally, they would interpret laws. Okay, what does the law really say? Finally, this is where we'll end, and this is where the chart is. So take a look at it.